of the Garden Report Post Game Show.
Yeah.
Jimmy Toscano, Bobby Manning from the Garden. What's up, Bobby?
Hey, how you doing?
How are you doing?
Bobby boy, reporting live.
Yeah, fun night here. This is the first night we've been here with fans, right? Did Joe Sway catch any of the fans?
No,
I
we
think this is-
didn't go the first two nights. So this is the first time we've had somebody there. What was it like?
Oh, it got loud in that second half when they were scrambling defensively. I said you were going to see the difference between 0 and 2000, and they were doing the taco chants late in the third. It got a little out of control, but like it was great to see them back here. It's just such a difference.
Could you actually hear the difference? I mean, compared to 18, I mean, what was it? 18,000? I mean, what was it? Something that you could really notice, or?
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the flow of the game. Like, looking around and seeing like the gaps between all of them. You're just listening. It's a great backdrop, especially on TV. You probably hear it on TV too, the difference. And
I couldn't hear anything over Scout tonight, but
oh Lord, I heard about that. But
anyway.
Someone gave him the play-by-play assignment and didn't tell him that every once in a while, like, you got to stop.
Yeah, like, we're watching.
That was a mistake. I would have flipped that one, but I didn't hear it. So,
hey, I mean, I'm not gonna trash him. It's very difficult to just jump.
That's
into
a hard
play
gig.
role. Yeah, I mean,
hey, credit to John Wallach, who was pretty good on the radio tonight. I was listening to that one.
I actually thought Scal did okay. I know people were busting his chops. It is hard to go from the color role to that role.
I mean, I think he'll probably watch it back, and maybe next time he might do a little
watch
less.
the tape.
Might do a little less. Yeah.
Yeah. Less is more. You got to check the tape. But you forget, like, it all kind of starts and ends with you. And you're right. Like, do I stop talking? Should I keep talking? What am I supposed to do? It's a tough gig. Right. But anyway, this is the second Houston makes us feel good about ourselves game in the last couple of weeks. So it's
especially
hard
for Rob, right?
I mean,
his favorite opponent.
However, big difference in this game. Last time he did not face Christian Wood, and this time he did. And you can argue Christian Wood is an all-star level center, and Rob had his overall hard to argue, at least statistic. I think he's played overall better games, but not by much. This was an unreal game.
This is a great game. It's not just the stats. I mean, the way he played and
he was unreal.
Those stats. Yeah.
And I mean, he almost had a triple-double, guys. Jesus. I mean,
and for the first time, I actually thought that Bobby, you were there, but I actually thought that the players were looking for him, and they were actually like running plays through him and looking for him at the rim. And he was, once he got the ball, like he was pretty smooth with it over there. I mean, I got to say, like I was impressed. I mean, I know we've been pumping his tires all season, but I mean, he earned it tonight.
Especially early. He had like 10 points through the first 11 minutes of the game or so in the second quarter.
He assisted on like 3 of the first 5 baskets and had 10 in the first.
Yep. So, and then in the second half, especially the fourth quarter, you saw the high post action from him. I know you guys don't like it, but he does a great job out of that. All 4 of those 48 threes when he broke off for 5 straight there were assisted off him. And it was all that high screen movement action off of Rob. And that's one thing I will not deny about Rob. He has to be one of the best big man passers we have ever seen in Boston, certainly, but also in this league, especially early on in a career. I mean, this isn't Jokic yet, but like, he could maybe get to that point, right?
Wow.
Like the vision there is just incredible.
Bobby,
I agree, Bobby. Like it's not just assist totals. It's the confidence to throw difficult passes too. It's not just vision finding guys who are clearly open. He sees guys that other people, even guards, will not find. I mean, he's a really, really like. I don't know what the right word is, like courageous pass, but he threads needles. He finds guys, he gets them to him quick at the right time through traffic. He's a really, really clever passer.
Yeah, for sure. And that last Fournier one off of him was from the top of the arc to the corner, which, like you say, only the skip pass is probably harder than that. The vision, the confidence, as you say, and the skill, the finesse to do it from various positions on the floor. I mean, what I find amazing about him still, we talk about the lack of a shot with him sometimes. For him to be a threat as a passer out there where everyone knows he's not going to shoot, he's not going to take you off the dribble, but he still is able to make such a quick decision that opens up offense for other guys. I mean, that's his most valuable skill right now. It was most unique skill, certainly.
Well, and beyond that, Bobby, I really do feel like with Rob, it's almost like Keanu Reeves, in The Matrix. Like he's slowly figuring it out as the movie goes along, and like oh my God, this is the one. Like he might be the one. Like
this year's been incredible.
As you get further along in the movie, he's like, how did I do that? Like until he gets the confidence, he's like, I can do this,
Yeah.
I can dodge bullets. I know Kung Fu. Like all of a sudden, he's just like, I can do all of this stuff. Like you feel like that next step in the evolution is all of a sudden, he's like, of course I can friggin' pull up, from the elbow and hit this jumper. Like it's all there. It's there if he wants it. And it's just, I see no reason to believe that it's not going to happen, that the evolution won't continue.
Right. And it's kind of goes back to what we said. Just allow him to get that confidence. Play him. Get these minutes ticked up. Play with the starters. Allow him to find out for himself that he can play with these guys. Play against the Christian Woods of the world, right? Not, the backup center in the blowout game. It would have been, last year at this time, he would have came in when Taco Fall came in tonight, So, I mean, to see how far he's come along in less than a season, I mean, obviously nowhere, he's not going to even be in discussion for most improved player. But honestly, I mean, when you talk about improvement, this guy absolutely fits the bill from where he was last year to where he is this year. We're talking about him as, this future, current and future starting center of this team, a huge piece going forward. And last year at this time, he was, a complete afterthought. Literally a player that was a DNP CD, in a row, and just, almost a liability out there based on the way he was playing.
Yep.
Fifth in scoring on this team since the beginning of March. The efficiency, 75% inside. You talk about over 8 rebounds a game. It's just incredible. 3 assists. Yep. His March was incredible, and now it's extending in April. Yeah.
So a couple fun stats popping out in this game. One, and again, people in the columns are saying it. This should be the Evan Fournier show, and I think it very much will be in terms of that. But beyond just what they did tonight, what you need these guys to do, the stat that jumps off the page to me tonight, again, from a team perspective, certainly we're going to look at assists. They came out right out of the gate. It was obvious what they wanted to do. They ran that beautiful action there where Tatum whips it to Smart, who gets before the ball even settles into his hands, he gets it to Rob down low for a dunk. This is, again, one of those games where obviously they were told, we're going to pass the friggin' ball tonight. And they did. So the 35 assists jumps off the page. But the other is 2 20-point scorers not named Tatum or Brown or Kemba, which is something you're just not getting from this team. And if you can rely, you're not going to get 20 from Rob every night, but to be able to get that from Rob and Fournier on this night, that's just unreal. Like, you need contributions from other places so these guys don't have to carry the load. And they did. Another Marcus Smart. How many shots tonight?
6.
Wow.
Yes.
It's a sweet spot.
Do that. Do that.
How good was he tonight? Yeah. Passing, defense inside. This was his best defensive game of the season.
Yes. Defense up, distributing, moving the ball quickly, not looking for the shot. Like, this is, you want to talk about best versions of themselves? This was the best version of Marcus Smart tonight.
1,000%. I mean, listen, 6, we're not, and there's going to be people being out there like, well, you can't expect him to only take 6 shots a game. We don't, but we don't want him to see him take 16 and go, 2 for 8 from 3 and force a bunch and, start, trying to do things that he's not, really wants to be asked to do, like playing above what he's supposed to be doing. And tonight, when he fits his role well, dishing it to Fournier and players like that, we haven't even mentioned Fournier really yet. That's perfect role for him. The 10 assists, I mean, if you're getting 10 assists from Marcus Smart every night, I mean, that's a game where you're most likely winning, right? Because he's getting his other guys involved. They're hitting their shots. I mean, you want to go back to last game when nobody could hit a shot. It's a simple game, folks. You hit your shots, results will follow. And, it was night and day. I mean, the open shots were going down tonight, whether it was Fournier, whether it was Tatum. These guys were actually hitting the shots tonight. And, that's why you're seeing the higher assists too. I mean, those shots don't go. We're not talking about 10 assists, obviously. But when Marcus Smart's playing his style of game that with 0 for 2 from 3, I mean, yeah, you want him to hit a shot. But if he's only taking 2, he's not killing you on the offensive end.
It's pretty evident, too, that you want Fournier to have more shots than him pretty much every single game. We've talked about the inactivity of Fournier, the lack of involvement, and that happened tonight, too, in the first half. I didn't think he was all that much on the ball, getting the dribble into a shot, all the stuff we talked about. But for them to just hammer home pass after pass to him in that second half the way they did, that's so encouraging. Not only for like his confidence and his insertion within the team, but you weren't sure if that was going to be something he'd be comfortable with, catching, shooting. Not something he did all that well in Orlando. But tonight, he pretty much knocked down everything. This was the best three-point shooting game of his career. He's never hit 7 threes before. So this is another sign. Yeah.
He's never hit 20 points in the fourth. He's never done any of this stuff.
Yeah, so this is a sign that he could fit well with this team in that role. A little less ball time, a little more catch and shoot action, off-ball movement. And I love the pass that they got him in the lane. This actually might have been the fourth quarter against Dallas a couple nights ago. During the comeback, a rhythm drive to the rim, through the foul, finish at the net. And I love his defense. He is such a good defender. I don't think people realize that coming into Boston. Like, he moves around the screens effortlessly. He rotates. He's got good cohesion with Smart in that sense. So he's a guy that's got to play a ton, shoot a ton, and just be constantly involved, whether it's on the ball or off the ball.
Well, he's lucky. We got to be honest. I mean, look, he had an awesome fourth quarter, and you saw things of flashes of what he did, but this was trending. I mean, my notes. This game story was what another dud game from Fournier up until the fourth quarter. Because I mean, he was 1 of 6 shooting, wasn't knocking down his threes, had a miserable air ball late in the shot clock. In that third quarter there, and it was kind of like looking at are they going to use this guy in any way that utilizes his skill set, or is he just going to go up there and every once in a while jack a shot or two and just call it a night? It was headed in the wrong direction, and then just bang, 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 he just started drilling.
Oh, it was unreal. Just splash, splash, splash. We haven't seen a run like that from a individual Celtic in a while.
That was incredible. You just looked, every time I looked up, I didn't know if I'd accidentally rewound my TV. He was just he was lining up for another 3, and I was like, wow, that's another one,
And who could have done that before the deadline? You weren't going to see that from Shemi. You weren't seeing that from Green, Neesmith. You hope that draft night that this might have been the cards, but certainly not. So finally, there's just a capable scorer off the Jays and Kemba.
Yeah, it's a good point, Bobby. Yeah. It's a great point. I mean, you're right. I mean, who's taking that shot in the fourth quarter? Probably Smart, right? Forcing up an ugly one, or criticizing Tatum for holding the ball for 18 seconds and jacking one up. So it's definitely good to have that player. I'm not going to criticize the shooting because they all went down, but I mean, is it just going to be 3-ball jacking, I guess? Is that doesn't really matter who you are once you come to the Celtics? Like, that's kind of what you end up doing? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's their style. I mean, they're a 3-point shooting heavy team.
They need more.
When the shots fall, everything's fine and dandy. When they don't, you have a game like you did on Wednesday. So we've been riding and you ride or die with the 3-point shot, and it feels like that's how it's going to go all season. So again, it's great that the shots fell, but I mean, if they don't, what are we talking about tonight?
Look, all threes aren't created equal, and when you have a piss poor night than you had a couple of nights ago, sure, those are going to happen too, and that's always the live by the sword, die by the sword sort of thing. When you count on the 3-point shot or outside shooting for the majority of your buckets, and you can't generate easy baskets, that's always going to be tough. But not all are created equal. When you're getting good ball movement threes, when you're driving and dishing and kicking out,
that was the difference tonight.
That's a difference. And so when you're manufacturing those shots, you're giving yourself a better chance, as opposed to whip the ball around the perimeter and whoever has it near the 5-second mark of the shot clock just shoots a 3, or shoots it early in the clock just because it's your turn to shoot it by just dribbling.
It was movement tonight. I mean, they were whipping the ball around. I mean, I think even Scal said one too many passes, and then Tatum drains the 3, but
that was because Cornette had a layup.
He was right under the basket.
He turned around.
Right. But I mean, they still worked the ball around and got an open 3 out of it. So credit to them. And you're certainly not going to criticize for ball movement, because so many times this season it's just take the ball here, your turn. You take the shot, and I'll take it next. But this time it was actually like, whether it was finding Rob, streaking to the hoop or at the basket, or whether it was whipping it around. For Tatum or Fournier, it was working tonight. I mean, good for them. Again, it's the Houston Rockets, so let's all, relax a little bit. But what I said on Wednesday, my closing thoughts was take care of business, Friday night against the Rockets, work Fournier into the game, and get some momentum going into Sunday. So that's exactly what they did.
Perfect prediction.
I heard that Hayward left the game tonight, unfortunately, with a sprained foot. So I don't know what his status is going to. Yeah, I don't know what his status is going to be for Sunday. By the way, Steven says Jaylen Brown's fine, so we don't have to worry about that.
People are asking in the chat.
I saw that on
it
Twitter.
looked like he knocked knees. It didn't look like a twist or
whatever.
whatever.
They were up 20 at that point, too.
They called it a contusion. According to Brad Stevens, he's going to be fine, so I assume he'll be out there on Sunday. But, as far as Hayward's concerned, I just saw a tweet saying he left the game with a sprained foot, so I don't know.
When you were –
Real quick on your three-point point, Jimmy. If you had to guess where this team is in 3 points attempt per game, and this has changed drastically, where would you guess rank-wise?
If I had to guess without knowing, I would say somewhere near the top. But I know that's just how the NBA is, so I don't know.
Who, the Celtics?
Yeah.
Celtics are middle of the pack in 3 points.
Middle of the pack. But because everyone's shooting threes, that's just
But starting 1 week ago, last Friday, if you look at the rankings in the league over this last week, guess where they are?
They're near the top. They were lower than halfway. In fact, most of the
They're first in the league in this last week.
They're not shooting enough threes. It was the opposite, which is funny because the average criticism of this team is like all they do is jack threes. Again, it's all threes aren't made equal. When you just pound, my shot and then my shot, it's different.
It's not
I think that's what
people criticize them because they miss so many. So where are they
reacting to?
Where are they in that?
That's a good point, Jimmy. Yeah, over the last week they've shot the most threes in the NBA, but they're 20th in efficiency.
Right. So when the shots are falling, no one's saying all these guys do is shoot threes. They're saying, "Wow, great shot." It's like John's saying. It's what transpires leading up to the three that really drives you crazy. I mean, we understand that you have a good shot, take the shot. You're not going to criticize a guy for missing an open three or working the ball around. But when you force it, or when you drain the clock and fadeaway three, or when Grant Williams is taking the three or Marcus Smart's taking the three, that's when you start to go crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is part of an effort to balance it out. I don't think we want them to be first. They're not the Jazz. You don't want them to be first in the league in threes the rest of the year. They don't have that kind of personnel. But if you can get close to that top 10 range, I think that's good for them as a team because what are they going to be doing otherwise? Tatum fadeaways from 18 feet, right. Marcus Smart, long twos. I mean, you don't want any of that. The only guy really that you want taking a high volume there in that mid-range is Jaylen Brown to some degree, if he can get back to his early season form there, or Kemba. And Kemba even is really faded from that spot on the floor. Like that used to be his moneymaker shot. Right. You just don't see it as much anymore.
You're right. He's not. Well, I feel like we see it in bits and pieces, but you're right. I mean that drive to the paint and then step back, pull up sort of thing that he would do, like the 15-footer. We aren't seeing a lot of that. I don't know if that has anything to do with how he's feeling or what. I mean, I have no reason to believe it is, but.
With Jaylen?
Right, we're not seeing much.
Kemba.
We're not seeing the typical how head to the basket and stop on a dime and pull up for the 15-footer. We're not seeing a whole lot of that out of him.
So what do you guys think of Kemba's game tonight? It was again a strange one in the sense of when he's not taking a lot of shots, you start to worry that he doesn't feel he can get his shot. Right. Whereas you can also look at this game and say, well, no, he just took a secondary role because other people were cooking a little bit and he was distributing more. But it is weird to have him be this passive from an offensive standpoint. I'm fine with him consciously giving the game what it needs. I'm just always a little bit leery when you see one of these types of games, wondering was this a game where he felt like he couldn't get his shot off or he didn't feel like he needed to?
Well, to that I'll say this. It's like damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
I know.
Because the first, X amount of games he was playing, everyone's saying, oh, Kemba's the reason they're struggling because he's a shoot-first guard. He's not a facilitator. He's not getting, he can't get the Jays involved the way that he should. And then on a night where he kind of does focus on that, we say, well, what's up with Kemba? Can he not get his shot off or is he not looking for it? So, I actually, you got the stat line right there. I'm fine with those numbers. I mean, obviously,
4 of 8. It's not on this stat. Yeah, 4 of 8. There it is. Yep.
Yeah, there it is. I mean, 8 assists. I think he had 6 rebounds, plus 24. I mean, obviously they blew him out, but it was one of those games where he didn't feel like he needed to force his shot or look for his shot. And I think Fournier's big fourth quarter had something to do with that, obviously. And other guys were getting involved. And let's not forget, Rob was a player that I think shots away from guys like Kemba, and in a good way. Because maybe a shot that we're talking about that Kemba would step back and take, he can now find Rob streaking to the basket or under the rim for the easy two or the lob, right? So that's another thing that we've been asking. He's like, get the ball to Rob down low and let him do what he does at the basket. And I thought that they did that tonight. So, you take a few of those shots away from Rob and you give him to Kemba. I mean, we're probably not talking about his maybe he ends up with 16, whatever he ends up with. But no, I don't have an issue with his game tonight. I thought it was a little on the quieter side, but that's what's going to happen when you're getting other guys involved the way they were. Like you said, John, between 4 20-point scores tonight, and Kemba didn't have to be one of those guys,
yeah.
which
it's
is
not
great.
A criticism. It was just a question.
No, it's just an observation for sure.
Yeah. And I felt like from the earliest minutes of this game, a pleasing adjustment from Steven's standpoint was they took Tatum off that lead guard role more.
Yeah.
Kemba was there. Smart was there throughout this one.
And
they were the
Rob
ones creating. Yeah, throwing Rob. And that's a good point, too. The two best lob throwers on this team, we see Tatum get in the lane and throw those to Rob a little bit. Brown does it from time to time. But Smart's easily the best. And then Kemba gets those off, too, if he can get into the pick and roll.
Yep.
So they were the ones generating a ton of the facilitating action tonight. And it was nice to see Tatum, use some flare screens on the wings and stuff, get out in transition, use that as a way to get his offense rather than ISO, which really, if you dive into the numbers on Tatum's ISOs at this point, I mean, he's 9th in the league in usage in that sense, and he shoots 35% on those shots.
Low. Yeah.
It's just absurdly inefficient.
That's how
they're running their offense.
That goes back 2 years. That's the thing with Tatum, and people don't realize is you think like, okay, you take the good, you take the bad with him. This is what he does. He's an ISO player every once in a while, so you got to just live with it. But the efficiency 2 years ago, he was actually dead last in the league, dead last for someone with his usage rate or near it in ISO scoring. And he's very close to the bottom again this year. And Brown's not much better, actually. So you have two guys who play in isolation more than you'd like them to, who are not at all effective in it. So it's not just the eye test. Everybody who's watching it losing their minds. The statistics bear out. They are way worse when they just give these guys the ball and get out of the way. They have, and again, this is the debate people keep having. Who are they going to pass to? The answer is it probably doesn't matter. Just creating movement in this offense makes the offense flow better and ultimately results in them getting better looks along the way. It's not just about who gets it. Ultimately, it's going to come back to them one way or the other. It frees them up. Them just dribbling and trying to find their own shots and ignoring everyone else on the floor is a terrible way to play.
Yeah.
So you hope that this is contagious. You hope this isn't just the Houston flu, or there's just one game and then you go back to it on the next one, because they have to play like this to be successful. There's no other option.
Yeah, and Tatum's best, I'll throw it to you real quick, Jimmy, but Tatum's two best plays as a pro right now are catch and shoot threes. Like from his first days as a rookie, that was a money play for him, and post-ups. And the Celtics never really do that, but every so often he gets a post-up, and he's great at that. But when it comes to the mid-range action, driving to the rim, we know he's not a great finisher. And even bouncing around those screens and the threes, he'll have great games on those, but that doesn't always go well for him either. Like, he missed everything against Dallas running those. So, you almost want him off the ball a little bit. Now, again, he's not going to be, in the Aaron Nesmith role on this team, off the ball all the time, but you want to get him off the ball, running off screens, even setting some screens, just to free him up, because they're going to blitz him if he's on the ball.
Well, you're right. That's the thing is he gets blitzed and he gets pushed out further away from the action, which forces him to dribble even more, takes himself completely out of the play. And you're right. When he catches it low and he does the contested shots that you like with him are those rise up little fadeaways, one-legged fadeaways from 8, 10, 12 feet, where he does seem to be able to get that shot clean off of people. But these ridiculous step backs from 18, 20 feet and these dribble, pull-back threes are clearly the worst part of his game and the one that he just keeps falling back into.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I mean, the more they can get him off the ball, the more that they can allow him to lose his defender and create mismatches. And him on the catch and shoot is something that we don't get to see enough because of the way that Bobby mentioned, the way they've had to use him this year. So, I think that makes perfect sense. And, you'd like to see you'd like to see the Celtics or Brad get him in motion a lot more off the ball, coming off around screens and picks, and they should be able to allow that to happen and get him in motion. I mean, he's so much taller than, and the thing about Jayson Tatum is, at least when I see when he's in those one-on-one situations, a lot of times he's just shooting over guys. I don't necessarily think he's got like the deepest bag where he loses defenders. He's using his height. I mean, he has a great shot. Don't get me wrong, but he's able to shoot over guys. He's not necessarily losing them. So for him to be able to get a clean look, is something that the Celtics need to absolutely work into their repertoire more often.
Let me work in a viewer question for Bobby right here. After this game, Bobby, this Swaggy E loyal viewer wants to ask if you think Rob is trending towards untouchable, or if not, what type of player would you include him for in a trade?
I think he's close. When we had that whole Vucevic conversation, I thought it would be tough to give him up in a trade like that, especially with, where the front court was going with Tice and Thompson. You'd essentially just be going all in on Vucevic at that point. I guess they're all in on Rob now at this point after dumping Tice. But, what would you flip Rob for? They got their wing now in Fournier. They got a decent guard rotation. And so all you really need behind Rob at this point, if he's going to continue to develop, is like a good depth center, like a Robin Lopez or something. And we'll see if Tristan Thompson can pan out behind him as a backup, or if they end up flipping them, you guys are going to freak out, and probably rightfully so at this point. But as far as trades go, like, you want him to be you guys keep throwing around the Al Jefferson comparison. Like, that's where you want him to go. And right now, based on what we learned at the deadline, he doesn't have great value around the league. So what are you going to do? You don't want to sell low on him. You just got to continue to develop him. Hope he becomes like a core member of the team. And eventually, if something becomes available, you think about it. And if it's like Beal or something like that, you do it.
We've been saying this all season? Like, you have to play Rob. You have to improve his worth. And then he might have a tradable asset that you didn't have coming into the season. 100%. That's literally what it is. So when that Swaggy E asks, is Rob untouchable? No, he's not untouchable. But the whole point is he either becomes good enough where Celtics fans don't want to trade him, or he becomes good enough where you can actually get a legitimate star return. And you do the key thing here, which Bobby won't even pick up the phone on a trade that includes Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum. Well, now you might have a player that can get you not saying that they want him, a Karl Anthony Towns type, right? A player that is asked for a trade and, needs a new scenery. And here come the Celtics calling with a Rob-centered package and picks and whatever it is. And you can keep Brown and Tatum. So, again, only good things can come from this. Agree with Jeremy Grant.
I just want to qualify just for the sake of this conversation. I want everybody in the comments to understand when we say untradeable, we don't mean like, you're not going to trade him straight up for Bradley Beal. Like, of course, that's not what we mean. Untradeable means, is he now no longer just an add-in sweetener to get you a little bit better, to make that marginal upgrade? That's more what we're talking about. Nobody's untradeable, of course. And Rob's certainly
no. There are Celtics fans out there that probably think Rob Williams is actually untradeable.
But there are others out there who are like, you guys are nuts. The other thing, when we mention Al Jefferson, we're not talking about in style of play. We're simply comparing what Jefferson was as a piece in the Garnett trade.
I want you to flesh that out a little bit, because obviously I want you to flesh that out a little bit, John, because I was like, 10 when that happened?
Yeah.
So like, what I know it was a different league back then, but what made Jefferson a piece that besides Kevin McHale being there, that the Wolves looked?
He was a true blossoming big who had a lot of value at the time.
Can you compare Rob to that in today's game, or center's just not as valuable anymore?
He was more of a score first kind of post up big man.
Yeah. So that's my question about Rob's value.
At that time in the league, that had more value. He was a legit. This guy was this is a guy who was a 20-point per game big man. He left the Celtics, as a kind of like he was like a 16 and 11 guy.
He was a higher pick. He had more. He had more hype coming in.
Yeah.
I think
he was 20 and 12, 20 and 11. He was a real deal, big man.
Yeah, I think Bill Simmons coined it the Al Jefferson poo-poo platter, which is like the perfect description of that trade for KG, because they really was an Al Jefferson, and then they just gave a bunch of guys that
it was essentially a TP.
Yeah, they a bunch of guys that were never going to be more than what they already were probably. Gerald Green was in there. In credit to Gerald Green, he went on to have a solid career, but
not
to that extent.
Jefferson was the centerpiece, and the rest of the thing were spare parts, and it still wasn't a fair trade. All I'm saying is,
well, Jefferson got hurt.
We use the Jefferson comparison simply to say you need that. Every team is looking for the young player with assets as well.
You don't have it in Langford, Neesmith. You know, go down the line. You know, Ainge hasn't hit on those guys, so it looks like Rob Williams was, credit to him, a guy that you know, we've criticized Ainge countless times in this show about the drafting, and it would appear that he nailed this pick, right? I mean, it would appear that
really hard to do. A 27 pick,
really hard to do.
Go look up how many of those hit. Go look up how many 25 to 30 picks stick in the league for very long, or are even crack rotations. The answer is very, very, very.
Maybe he benefited from an injured type of a player coming into the draft. Maybe there are some GMs who got kind of scared because of that, and maybe that you need a little luck though. So they took the risk and it paid off.
And credit to Danny, we freak out about the Neesmith thing, but on the other end of that situation, you get Robert Williams at 27, and it looks like it's working out. That's how they got Avery Bradley way back when, and that was a fantastic pick. So that's his MO on draft night. Like, if a guy has potential and there's red flags there that are scaring other people, he'll be all over
that too.
He's good in the top 3 and then the bottom 5.
Yeah, I mean, he's for everyone that's hit. I mean, there's probably 2 that haven't or 3 that haven't. So
I'm even thinking, like, imagine if Michael Porter landed here and he fell so far in that draft. I forget where the Celtics were. But it was getting close, and he probably would have done it.
What did he go? 10 or 11?
Yeah.
I think he went 14, and the Celtics must have been. You have to look that up because I can't pull it up here. But again, I like the approach, and so that makes it a little bit harder to freak out about Romeo, as we often do here. And Romeo's got another year or 2 to figure it out after just a complete wash of 2 years. So. Rob, wasn't it similar with Rob though? Like the first year, complete wash, red shirt. Second year, wicked hurt, didn't play at all really because of the 40 games he missed. Gets involved in the postseason. Now year 3, he gets healthy, he gets involved, and
healthy.
He improves. Well, last year he missed 40 games, Jimmy. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's been healthier before March.
Year 1, nothing was expected, but you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, he's barely played 1 full season, I mean, and so when you think about that in terms of development, he's 30 games each of the last 2 years, and now he's, we're 40 games into this year. So, I mean, he's just barely passed a full season of NBA action under his belt. And granted, you're developing just being in the system and maturing over time in your body and all of that. So it's not fair to say he's like a rookie, but in terms of actual action, you're right. It's basic. It's a red shirt year. And then a year he spent basically mostly injured last season. This is his first full season. And this is what you're seeing. And we talked last year about like how you saw Tatum and Brown make jumps in season, to become different types of players. You're seeing it with Rob. I mean, coinciding also with minutes and opportunity. But even now, even still, almost every minute. I mean, do you even recall conversations about Rob Williams having lapses and being worried about what he's going to do and this and that? Like, that was a big thing like 20 games ago. Yep. Like, how many times a game are you like, oh, here's Rob being Rob again?
I can do it tonight if you really want me.
He has a couple. What I'm saying is he has a couple for sure, but so does everyone. That's the point we've been making. But before, it was such an issue that it was literally considered prohibitive. Like, well, he's going to be so bad doing all of these things, it's going to negate everything good he does. And no, he makes mistakes like every human, but it's not this like this thing that's like dooming the team when he's out there at all. And it hasn't been for a while. Yeah.
He learns and improves quickly. When you do think of the short span that he's been a pro and he's been involved on this roster, all the improvements we've talked about have happened in a pretty short span of time. So it makes me think about next year's contract year. Like, can he start shooting a little bit? Can he dribble? Can he work on the ball downhill? Like, these different things that if you add to what he already does, you're really talking about a special player. And I don't know how quickly that stuff will come, if it'll develop. This might just be the product that he is, even if it like reaches its fully formed product. This is what it is. But you can't rule out him shaping out other parts of his game now that he's really mastered what he does so well. Now, you'd love to see more defensive consistency. I still feel like a lot of the stuff we talk about with him this year, especially, is on offense. Tonight I felt like he got burned in transition a few times when the Rockets were going off, positioning, gets himself pulled out, the pick and roll, all that stuff.
He does. He goes for the block sometimes too and falls out of position and allows for an easy bucket or a rebound. Sometimes he's got to stay home a little bit. So he still has some discipline issues there, but they're not as prevalent as they were in the early stages of his career.
Yeah. Fouling a little less too, which is good. I think he only had one tonight in 26 minutes. So, that's money time come playoffs. If he can stay in a game with 1 or 2 fouls in 30 minutes, that's going to change their playoff hopes drastically.
And what we didn't realize when the season started is you would not have guessed let's throw Tice into the mix here, that he'd be their best rebounding big, but he's their best rebounding big. He goes up and gets it better than anybody else on this team currently or who they started the season with. And that's a big deal. The rebounding is not an issue on this team, and Rob Williams is a huge reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a couple little nuggets for tonight. It was funny while we were talking about big men. How do we go from Mo Wagner, the starter, to Mo Wagner, garbage time minutes only?
Common sense. Come on. Oh, Lord. That was one of Steven's worst moves of the year. What was the other puzzling start from earlier in the season that we were just like, why is this guy starting?
Carson?
Yes.
Green?
Yes, that
I don't
Carson
know.
after
how
one
much
good game.
time do you have?
The Carson Phoenix one blew up in their face immediately, and so did this one. That image of Mo laying like a dead body after saving the ball, that's going to be the image of their season if it goes the wrong direction.
This is, by the way, 3 straight games with Shackton a full sort of caliber plays. If you obviously go smart with the half court heave, Wagner with the under the basket save, and then Grant Williams alley-oop to nobody tonight.
But it ended up well.
Say this.
It ended up at 3.
I'll say this. Scal nailed that one as it was happening. I think Grant had the ball on a breakaway, and Scal goes, "This should be interesting." And sure enough, Grant does like a 180 alley-oop to literally nobody.
And then the next trip down, or maybe to start the fourth, he pulled up from 12 feet and got blocked, and it bounced right to Rob, and he scored. So there were 3 weird assists in a row from Grant. They weren't assists, but just 3 weird plays that ended up in baskets for the Celtics tonight. Like you said, Jimmy, everything went in for this team tonight. 52%, 41 from 3. This is again, it's Houston. Houston's just horrible. But
I know
you like to have a feel good game for sure.
But they're horrible, but they're horrible, and the Celtics took care of business. So credit to them, because this is the type of win that they needed to have against a bad team. You don't want to be grinding it out against these bad teams, or even worse, losing. So yes, Houston's a bad team, and the Celtics, the final score would dictate that they, I'll tell you what, it was an entertaining game. I'll score aside. Houston kept it interesting, but the Celtics, I think, were comfortably. That second half, they were comfortably in control. So they treated this game like a game that, they wanted to make sure that they made everybody know that they're a much better team than the team that they were playing tonight. But John, to answer your question about Wagner,
he's horrible.
Bobby said it, common sense, but
it was such a bad play that even Bobby turned on Brad at the end of the show. That's how bad.
He played a lot last game.
He did, and it's almost like Stevens has made that position much more difficult than it needs to be. Because if he just played Rob the way he played him tonight, he's probably not taking half the heat that he's been taking this season.
And
right?
Luke. Yeah, Luke. Luke's probably better than Mo.
Here we go. All right, give Bobby his Luke time, because I think you went 5 tweets in a row on Luke. So go on.
This is not going to end well for the Green Cornet backers, by the way. He's going to, but anyway, let's go.
Well, I'm about 4 games into watching him at this point. We'll see if
so's the rest of the planet.
Yeah, seriously.
Nobody knew this guy was alive before this. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, Brad goes to the stand, and maybe this is just something you say, but he says we've been after this guy for a long time.
Who?
And Brad. Brad said we've been trying to get this guy we've been eyeing him for a long time, is I think the word he used. Probably back to those Knicks days, because he had a big run with the Knicks one year where he was just pick and pop, rim protection, great defense like we're seeing this year from him. And is the shot going to be there? We'll see. But the defense certainly is. He really does protect the rim at 7'2". His footwork's good on that end. And the first days that he was here, at his opening press conference, he's like, this team's really using me the way I need to be used. Like, they're just using me in such a great way right now. So, again, Thompson's going to come back and be that backup. But if you do need somebody in that Tice role, you want to spread the floor a little bit more, get more size inside, and maybe Rob runs into some foul trouble. Like, this guy actually looks like he can play real minutes, solid minutes. I'm not saying he's Tice even or
– How about Porzingis?
That's what the Knicks fans were saying, yeah, when he went in his little run there. And again, like, no one really knew who he was coming in. We all figured he'd be out the door for the first real buyout candidate. But I have a sense that he could be with the team beyond this year. Like, he's a really useful role player.
He's such a Brad Stevens like player. He's just like tall, goofy, white, boring player. And just like whatever. I mean, if he does his thing, he does his thing. I'm not like rooting against the guy, but I was surprised to see him out there. I was surprised to see him out there tonight on Good Friday. I was surprised.
We all owe him an apology, Cam, I think, because he can play.
Hell like, no. I'm not there yet.
No.
I'm not there yet. Dude, I mean, listen. He's fine. He's fine. I'd rather.
He might not even be fine.
Honestly, Rob played 26 tonight. I would have rather Rob played 30 and 30 whatever. And Fournette plays less.
Throw it back to 2017. Danny Ainge signs this guy named Daniel Tice out of Germany. Like, last days of free agency. Throws him in there as the third center. Well, again, did you know who Tice was when he came here? Did you think he was ever going to do anything for this team? And by year 3, he's the starting center here. Like, this guy could be developed and fit well in the system, and he won't become the starter as long as Rob's here. But if he could be the backup big next year, a good third-string big, it's a real nice addition for a guy who's going to walk out the door in Tice. I mean, we all looked at that Tice trade and said, oh, they got nothing for Tice. It was just a salary dump. Well, it looks like they might have got a little something.
I don't know.
Here's what I'll say.
I'm not ready to say that yet.
If Kornet shows up on Sunday with like a fade and he changes like his socks and he just like, I don't know, looks cooler, then maybe I'll start to like.
Did you get a peek at his shoes? I saw some people making fun of his shoes.
Yeah, it looks like he just like. I'm surprised he didn't warm up in slacks. Like, he just seems like that type of guy. Like, so yeah, he needs to get a stylist in every sense of the word, and maybe I'll start to believe in him a little bit more. But no, I mean, all joking aside, he's definitely impressed me based on what I've seen. I'm like everybody else. I didn't know anything about this guy or expect him to even sniff the court. So the fact that he's getting legitimate minutes, hitting threes or whatnot, that's fine. Do I still want him taking them? No. Do I still want him have a single play drawn for him? Obviously, no. If he's going to go out there and spell minutes and play in place of a Wagner, if Wagner can't figure it out, or Thompson, because Thompson's apparently, out of the rotation or off the team, then fine. But anything more than that is,
Thompson was here tonight.
Wishful thinking. I saw. Yeah. I heard that he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they need him back to have that banger right now, because I don't want to see a lot of Kornet minutes. But sure, I think if Thompson slides into the 15, 18 minutes off the bench sort of thing, and if Grant plays in the small ball 5 role,
and you're not going to see him
Kornet there if and when you need it, I guess live with it.
You won't. How will you see Kornet anymore once Thompson comes back?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the Thompson and the Romeo absences. I mean, those guys were out. I've been out a long friggin' time with this, so I don't know how long it's going to take them to get back.
And the thing is, like, they act like they're working Romeo back to like a 25-minute. Like, this guy's probably barely going to sniff the court once he returns. So
yeah,
he must be really out of shape if he can't go 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I think there's real health stuff here too that they're trying to learn and work through, because again,
they said he cleared all his cardiovascular is cleared.
Yeah, but that's
conditioning.
But that's like Eduardo Rodriguez stuff. Like, if you find something there, shut them down for the season.
They didn't say that.
No, I'm saying that's why they check that. Like if something comes up there, then it's like, all right, we might have to shut this down. So he gets through that. Then you just have to say, like, can he play and feel good? Can he play and have no complications? Because I can't imagine this team like Tatum marching out to the presser saying, oh, I'm not feeling good. Like my breathing's off, and like having that fall back on the Celtics, because we know that they have a little history there when it comes to, players having some issues with injuries and other things, health and all that stuff. So again, I think this is a learning process for every team in the league itself. Like, what's the best way to bring a player back from COVID?
But I mean, these guys specifically compared to other guys in the league who, and I'm not comparing one illness to the other, but they have been out for a really long time.
Yeah.
And they are, based on what Brad has said, I mean, they are, healthy in terms of coming back from, like, they're not dealing with complications that they've told us. I mean, it's just, all they're saying is, we're just getting them back into shape. So what I'm saying is maybe they did get hit pretty hard with it, where they lost, whether it was wind, muscle, weight, or whatever it was, and now they're trying to get it back. It's just, it's a lot, obviously.
Yeah. No, it's a complicated situation. I think, like, sports in general is just trying to learn what's the best way to do that, because I think we've seen so many players that are just screwed up by it. And I think it's a real thing. Like, the impact on the lungs is going to be an impact on the athlete. And who knows? Maybe they should have kept Tatum out longer. Yeah.
How long does it take you to get into basketball shape even when you're playing and practicing? Quite a bit. If you Romeo just worked his way back and then literally couldn't do anything for a month. So, I mean, you just fall right out of shape, whether or not he's got COVID lung or, really adverse effects off of being ill.
Right.
He's just got to get back into it. He said,
we don't even know if he does yet. Yeah.
We have no idea. Well, right. The saddest thing was the Celtics public relations department has a private Twitter account, which if you're a member of the media, you sign up for. So they send you your tweets, and that's how we get our information for who's in, who's out, and then everybody disseminates it everywhere. And 2 days ago, they put out a tweet, and they just included Tristan Thompson as being out and Semi Ojeleye is out. And everybody was like, oh, Romeo, if a player's questionable with an injury or something, they usually list them as
on there, yeah.
He was questionable the day before, yeah.
But if you're not on the list at all, it usually means you're cleared. So everyone is like, Romeo's back. Oh! And then the next day, they put him right back on there as out, which means they literally forgot he existed. The Celtics forgot they're like, oh yeah, of course this dude's out. Okay.
We're still pretending this guy is with the team and he didn't disappear last year. We're still going with that lie.
So the weekend of Bernie's theory with
weekend at Romeo's is still going very strong right now.
That Jimmy has is very true. Jimmy, you sent me a text thread today from somebody who theorized that during the locker room meltdown when Marcus Smart got really mad that he actually murdered Romeo, and they've been trying to hide it, cover it up.
You know what he needs?
I want to find that. Yeah. I want to give that guy credit for that text because it was pretty funny.
I don't know if they're going to do it this year. They're tossing it back and forth, but if they do a summer league this year, he's got to go out there and just kill everybody. Like, he's just got to go out there with the rookies in Vegas and just
like a 27-year-old.
Hey, they sent James Young his fourth year, something like that. And again,
how did that turn out?
If I can't read it.
No, I'm just so people at home can see that the account is clapped Kevin. I don't know what that means. I don't want to know, but what happened to Romeo Langford? A threat, and then he goes into this wild story of what he thinks actually happened. I mean, I should just read it.
It was like a Knives Out sort of murder mystery.
Yeah. I should read it, but maybe I will. Okay, I'm going to read it. It goes, he was injured in the bubble, but the team kept him in there so he could gain valuable experience. After a game versus the Heat, Marcus Smart accidentally hit Romeo Langford with a chair and killed him during the team scuffle in the bubble. The 1 a.m. meeting was to discuss the matter and hide the body. Marcus Smart stormed out because Brad and Danny have him an alibi to clear his name. They're now using COVID to justify his cause of death, despite the overwhelming proof that Marcus Smart is a murderer. And then just some other ridiculous stuff. But that's the theory right now. And honestly, there's some teeth to it because we other than the hologram of Romeo in warm-ups a couple of days ago, we don't know much about his existence right now.
Right. It was total green screen. If you play it back, his leg disappears for a portion of it.
If you play it back backwards, it says that story.
I buried Paul. Yeah, it's
That's unreal.
It is unreal. The other sad moment of the day, so that was one sad thing, was that the Celtics forgot he was alive, so they didn't even include him on his injury report. The other sad thing was Neesmith again coming out today in garbage time, which again, it is what it is. I'm not going to get on my Neesmith rant, but he's running around the court, and all 2,000 people at that point, Bobby, and you're in there, so you can attest to it, are clearly want Taco to shoot, and Taco gets the ball in the high screen, and everyone's roaring for Taco to score, and then he passes it to Neesmith, who jacks and misses a three, and everyone's like, oh, like they didn't even want him to shoot a garbage time three. They're like, no, can you just give it to Taco and get out of the way? That's right. I feel bad for him.
Poor Avery Bradley too, who's in garbage time.
Garbage
point of his career, yeah.
Garbage time in the Houston Rockets. Oof.
People were talking about Olynyk a little bit on the thread, and they talked about it in the broadcast as well.
The Celtics killed him.
Seems an unlikely buyout candidate for the people who are wondering whether or not he's coming here. And again, that's the type of big I would absolutely welcome, because again, someone who can shoot and someone who could run with that second unit offense, I would love to have Olynyk minutes in there. Absolutely.
What was the reason they gave, Kelly's not going to give up any money to
Manic said on the down low that people are telling him Olynyk's not taking a buyout.
Right.
He's like,
Scal had some weird response that nobody understood.
Yeah, he was like, you can buy me out for the full value of my contract, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Scal thinks they can get anyone. I mean, Olynyk, that's really their return for Harden. Him and Dante Exum, they got to keep him. And he's a good player, and he's a nice rotation player in this league. He's not a buyout guy. So they'll probably keep him for $13 million or something, $10 million. And
these guys were guessing he's getting 3 and 35, So, I mean,
yeah. So, if the Celtics could have gotten him, you go get him and then keep him for years. That would have been a heist to get Kelly Olynyk out of buyout season. For all the reasons we've talked about with the buyout market, you don't see guys like that because they don't get bought out. They're too good.
Someone's putting it out here, but again, I think Grant best case scenario is is a version of Olynyk with a little bit more beef to him. Can bang a little bit more, but that's kind of what you want to see out of him, is somebody who can knock down the three and be more of a versatile type of.
I don't see it. Olynyk could dribble. Olynyk could pass a little bit.
Olynyk had a sneaky first step. He really did. He could get by people because he had that long, almost like Paul Pierce-like. I know people are going to bury that comparison, but it really was.
Take him off the show.
He would lull you to sleep with that long, big first step and get into the paint, and he could get by you.
He was an important part, probably an underrated part at this point of those Isaiah teams.
I was always an Olynyk guy. I think
he was properly rated.
The knock on Olynyk was that he went before Giannis in that draft, but actually for where he was picked, he's a successful NBA player for that slot.
Yeah, it wasn't Yabusele. Yeah,
we don't say that name.
He probably became their sixth man for those years, once Isaiah moved to the starting lineup. And honestly, I don't think people are going to forget that Game 7 for a long time, going on and scoring 28 to send them to the East Finals.
That was with the shit.
Everyone had this vision of what he could be, if he met his potential. And for about 3 or 4 years, people were just waiting and waiting and waiting, and the up fakes against no one, and just he'd have 0 points, then 15 points. But then out of nowhere in a Game 7, he goes out, hits every three, roaring to the rim, 28 points, and send them to the East Finals. That was one of the weirdest things that happened last decade, but one of the best things.
And then so we'll switch to this because we did want to talk about it. Isaiah Thomas signing with the Pelicans. And what do you guys think about it?
I'm pumped for him. I mean, listen, the Pelicans are ravaged with injuries, so I think they literally had to sign somebody to meet a requirement by the NBA for active players. So honestly, Isaiah Thomas, I think he deserves another. Obviously, I think he definitely deserves a chance in this league to show what he can still do. I mean, we don't have to rehash what he meant to those Celtics teams, a few years back, and I think there's a connection there between him and the fans that, he can move back to. He seems like one of those guys that could join the Celtics organization. If it didn't end the way it did, anyways, he could join the Celtics organization and be set for life here in Boston. I think that's how much he's loved by the fans here. And I still think he's got something left in him. And really, I was kind of surprised that it took him this long to find a team, especially on something like a 10-day. I mean, I mean, what's the risk there? I mean, I think there was a stretch where I thought the Celtics could have used a spark and could have used an energy boost, and I still think that they could use that. I mean, there's plenty of games where they're moping around and playing with no energy, and I think Isaiah Thomas is the definition of those things. But they didn't want to bury Carson or Tremont Waters and some of these younger guys, and that would have happened if they brought him on. So I guess I see it, but
yeah, the reality is
good for him.
He's just been so wildly inefficient and ineffective post hip injury that you know what a like detriment he is.
But let's see it. I mean, it's kind. I mean, I think he's had another surgery since, and he's gone through the whole rehab and all this stuff. I mean, all I'm saying is good on the Pelicans. Hopefully, he can get some playing time. I don't know if he will, but I think he deserves the opportunity to show that whether or not he can or cannot play in the league. So good on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the league has moved so fast since he was an MVP level player. We talk about 2008, but even 2017 to 2021, the way this league has gone to a place where pretty much every team has 5 guys who can, execute a swish, get the matchup they want, and just scorch it. It's tough to be 5'9" or whatever he is, especially at this stage in his career, because literally the other team will go at him every possession.
That's the problem.
There's no way around that.
I mean, look, we saw it here with Boston, obviously, in a year in which he finished top 5 in the MVP voting. But I mean, every year since then, the problem with him is that, that year he scores almost 30 points a game. He was so dynamic on offense. You could live with that, him getting absolutely torched and abused on the defensive. Every year since he's shooting 30 something. I mean, terrible percentages from the field. It's dreadful. 35, 36% from the field, 25%, 30% from 3. He's just not. He hasn't performed on the offensive end nearly enough to justify a contract. It's not surprising to me. I do think we get stuck in this. A lot of people do. We did it a little bit with Tristan this year. Yeah, and it's not a great comparison, but you always remember that we did it with Jeff Teague is a better example. You remember the memory of a player as opposed to what they actually are today. Oh, I remember this guy a couple of years ago. He could really score. If we could unlock a version of that. In many cases, that version is gone. And in Isaiah, I think that version is long gone.
You think it is, but that's what I'm saying. And again,
I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he deserves the opportunity to based on what at his peak was, that's the most fun Celtics fans have had since, obviously since the KG era and everything like that. So it's hard for me to just say that he's got nothing left in the tank. So, I'm going to be interested to see how he can play. I agree with what Bobby said. Things do move fast and everyone wants to switch and, they're playing with, 5 tight ends out there now and all this stuff. So, I get it. But, at the end of the day, this guy could fill up the bucket. He could score.
Well, that's a good question. Could he have done better in the Teague role to start this year than Teague did?
Probably. Teague was absolutely horrific to start the year.
That's a good second guess there.
I don't think
Teague was so bad.
But here's the thing. I don't think people are stupid, okay? There's a reason.
I do.
I don't think all 30 teams are stupid. There's no way a guy is sitting out there for the entire season and everybody passes and it's if I just signed. If you're the Celtics, you clearly know that this is you have to have Isaiah's agent is calling here every day saying, come on, what do you think? Here's a clip of him playing.
Isaiah said as much. Yeah.
He's basically said Isaiah flat out said, I've knocked on that door a lot, and they obviously don't want me here. It's the Celtics didn't just miss something, okay?
Right. And then Brad Stevens, says what he has to say to the media today, I'm sure he'll have a long career and all that stuff. It's well, nobody believes you because you had your chance.
No, but
clearly,
John, would you have taken him over Teague?
I don't.
In hindsight, or
in hindsight. In hindsight, yeah.
I think in hindsight, absolutely, because you already know what you got out of Teague, which was next to nothing.
I don't think so. I think sentimentally, yes. I actually think, what we saw from Teague the 2-3 games before he was traded, if you got a version of that the rest of the way, you would have had a usable.
John still loves Teague.
I don't love Teague, but the version you saw near the end was a more confident player who was doing things, who was taking it to the basket, who was getting to the free throw line, who was, a more dynamic offensive player than I think Isaiah can be at this point in his career. Peak Isaiah, of course, it's not even close. I just don't think you're getting it. So I'd love.
You're not going to get peak Isaiah, but he's a good locker room. I think he's a good locker room
watching a team than we had with that team. That's the best. That's the best team since 2008. Okay, that was the most fun. Of course, you want to see if you can capture a bit of that magic. You feel for the guy and you love the guy because he left it all out there. I mean, everybody wants to see it work here. But it's the same thing when they remake a movie 10 years later, 15 years later. And I'm like, I don't want to see that movie. I just want to remember the movie the way I liked it before. I didn't want to see the second Zoolander. That
was a bad sequel.
But let's just let
Home Alone 2 was sweet though, so you never know. You just never know.
But if the sequel comes out right after, you don't ever want to see a sequel if you waited 10, 12 years for it, because that's a force. So I think Isaiah here would have been Zoolander 2. I don't want to watch it. I just want to remember the good version of it and then leave it at that. And if he came back here, I think it would be bad. It would fail miserably, and then you'd remember that instead of the good stuff.
My only rebuttal to that is, don't downplay. I think Isaiah Thomas is a very good personality, a good locker room guy. He has a history of playing with Smart. I think that he could have done some things maybe in the locker room to maybe keep the spirits up higher, because from all accounts, it sounds like everyone's been down and out at multiple points throughout the year. And Isaiah Thomas, has always come across as a positive guy and a guy that's going to, look at the glass half full and give it his all out there. He's never been a guy that, at least I've watched.
Well, that's an interesting dynamic too.
Stuff.
So T comes in here and he's pretty quiet. He just
of course
does
he's a new guy.
Yeah. Could Isaiah have come in here as the 15th man and gotten that welcome, the King's back, it's his team, him holding court? I don't know. That would have been awkward to me. That might have actually done more harm than good in the room, probably. If this guy who just never played, which ultimately would have been his role, they probably would have done double big, Smart, all that stuff, sprinkled in Thomas occasionally. If he was going to be the one talking about the issues with the team and what we need to do and this and that probably would have rubbed some people the wrong way, just because of how small his role would have been here. Again, Teague didn't even come in here and play point guard every night. So Thomas certainly would not have. He would have been off the bench situationally and probably just getting very limited minutes, which, as John said, would that have had any impact on this team? Because Teague's impact was minimal, but minimal is better than nothing. I don't know. There's a chance Thomas could have done nothing for this team.
Not just nothing, but then, you'd feel bad. People would be clamoring for him to play if he did.
Yeah, that's the one thing.
Oh my Lord, the fans. That's a tough position to put a coach in.
Yeah.
That's the one thing is when Kemba struggles, you start to hear the Isaiah Thomas, people.
Yeah. Right. Why don't you start IT? Put Kemba on the bench.
John, I mean, you want to freaking start anybody but Kemba, so you would have been the first guy saying start Isaiah.
I just think there's.
But you would have said, why won't Brad just try it? Just throw Isaiah out there. Why not start Isaiah?
I think there's a version of the team that could work with Kemba. Look, this goes back to, I'll bring it back to the Kemba discussion we had earlier tonight, which was not a Kemba bashing.
I'm just using that as an example.
But I'm going to say it again. This actually tonight is a good launching point for this discussion. Where is it crazy to think that you could play a 3-wing lineup with Smart, with Rob and Smart to start? That's all around better defensively. Just don't say no yet, Bobby. Not yet.
No, I'm saying it's awesome. That's what I've been waiting for all year.
And so here's what's the knock on Kemba. With Tatum and Brown out there, those guys are more alphas. He's got to be deferential, and when he does get involved, it's usually at their expense, and you get this my shot, your shot sort of offense. Is there a world in which you take him out of the starting lineup just because, and you're going to play that 3-wing lineup with Smart and with Williams, crazy switchable, a much better defensive lineup, having Smart run the point and acting strictly as a distributor as he did tonight, put Kemba in that second unit and say, bombs away, kiddo. go for it. Like, don't worry about who's out there. When you're out there, you just friggin' gun it and you be you. You be Kemba. Is that terrible? I don't think so. I'm just throwing it out there as something to consider to mix things up a little bit. I that's only why I mentioned Kemba. And tonight actually is a decent snapshot for the type of the type of lineups that could theoretically work and why that might not be a terrible thing. So I'm still going to throw it out there. I would never clamor for Pritchard being the starter or IT if he were here. I just wonder if he could be that instant offense with a second unit. That's all. And shoot with impunity and not worry that he's taking the ball away from the stars and worried about his role. That he could just play free Kemba basketball.
There's a chance.
Terrible.
There's a chance he'd accept it. There's a chance it could be.
It's stigma.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of a guy who's already
score 20 points a game. It's not a terrible thing. It's come off the bench and be instant offense. This is your role. Now your job, you have one job. Here's what you're good at. You're a scorer. So come off the bench and score. Like, just do it. Don't worry about being a facilitator. Don't worry about playing off the ball. Don't worry about a lot of different things. Just score. That's what you do best. You're talking about putting people in the best positions to succeed. I don't think it's a terrible idea. So I would consider it. I would consider it.
It's not a terrible idea. It's just I think it's the optics of it. When they're struggling, all of a sudden you move the starting point guard to the bench, and now, I think Kemba is probably the type of guard that would accept it, because by all accounts he's positive guy and gonna do what's best for the team and all those things, so maybe he would accept it. But I think there's a lot of pride that goes along with being the starting point guard, and I don't think he's just going to accept all of a sudden he's the backup and here Kemba, no, just do your thing, we want to put you here because we want you to score more, so come off the bench. You just said I don't think people are stupid, is what you just said like 10 minutes ago. Well, I don't think Kemba Walker is stupid either. And you can frame it any way you want. It's a demotion.
You throw it about moving smart on the ball more.
He's already taken a demotion in the sense of he's basically told, you're $37 million, but you're the third fiddle on this team, and I want you to defer to these guys. When he's out there, he's already essentially demoted because he has to be a lesser version of himself. He has to be deferential to the stars of the team. So he's accepting a different role. This to me is liberating. This
isn't rec league either. They're not subbing 5 guys out at a time.
Yeah,
he's just
that's a good
manning
point.
the second unit.
He's
going to be playing with the same dudes. It's just a matter of whether he's starting or not.
It's not, but again, it's
same minutes. Yeah,
you're going to have fewer minutes on the court with Tatum and Brown at the same time, which is, again, I think ultimately the key is to have 2 of those guys out there at most times. But now when you have Fournier out there, you don't have to worry about that as much. So you can run a second unit that has Fournier bleeding into that second unit, and then Tatum coming back in at the bottom of Q2, quarter one, rolling into the second with a Tatum Kemba combination. And all of a sudden, it's not as bad. You can mix it up a little bit. I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. And then you mess around, with rotations as the game goes along and give the game what it needs. But I like it as a second unit jolt, and I do think it's potentially liberating for Kemba. So I'm not giving up on that point altogether.
Yeah. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. Don't ever give up.
The defense has actually essentially had the same defensive rating with him on the floor versus off the floor. So that's a tribute to how bad the team has played across the board on defense.
Defense is dead, Bobby.
Yeah, I don't think the defense.
I don't know if you heard.
I don't think the defensive upside would be worth what it would be to lose his offense on the court for more extended minutes during the course of a game. You lose some rhythm with him there too, probably by him not starting. He has to come off the bench, shake off some rust, get a few shots going. We saw when he was limited by his minute limit early in the year, that had a pretty poor effect on his game and his output and what he was able to do out there. I will say this, though, because it relates closely to something I was keeping an eye on tonight, because I knew the Rockets were going to put Olynyk out there with Wood, try to go double big, lure the Celtics into playing some bigger lineups, but Celtics played pretty true to themselves when it came to having a bunch of wings out there. They didn't go small again like we saw against New Orleans late, which I loved. But there's some real potential for some awesome small ball combinations on this team now. If Grant can get back to center and start playing well there, I like the team going in that direction. If that's what they're going to do, Kemba, Tatum, Brown, Fournier, even Smart, who I think could maybe play a little bit of center for this team as he did late in New Orleans.
You could do Smart 3 wings and Grant in that lineup. You could do Smart 3 wings and Rob if you wanted to, but you're right. If you want to stretch it, Grant has to be that small ball 5 in there. There's a world in which you play Kemba, Smart, and just 3 wings and completely just completely give up on anything resembling a big, where Tatum is your center, whatever. Smart's basically your center. You can play that lineup too. And again, this is what getting that third wing type player does for you. And these are the types of things we saw when they had Hayward before, where you have this lineup flexibility that they just didn't have.
That lineup looks a little better with Gordon instead of Smart, though.
Of course,
yeah, bigger.
Of course, it does. It's the type of game and the type of lineups that Brad wants to run out there. The possibility exists again. Before it didn't, because you're forced to play Grant in places he's not supposed to play, or Semi more minutes than he should be playing, and it was just ugly. I mean, how many times why is this guy starting?
He's been bad. Again, it's getting to the point where it's not just about him being miscast or playing on the wing more, stuff like that. He's just been legitimately worse as a player this year, Grant.
Yeah.
Which is tough. He's gotten worse. His shot's been better, but everything else, you see the passing, the defense, all that stuff, rebounding too. He had some real solid games last year. I think people forget, but not many at all this year.
He has a lot of games where he makes next to no impact at all. And there's a lot where you look at the box score and you're like, what
tonight again? Did he do anything tonight?
Nothing.
Next to nothing.
I mean, not a lot except for the alley-oop to Tatum, which was something. I think he hit a 3.
He might have thrown an alley-oop to Rob too. So he had a few good passes.
He did. He had one good pass to Rob.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it off this game. Have you guys watched
one good pass to Rob? That's it. Yeah, that was it.
Have you guys watched the Nuggets?
Yeah, they're really good with this guy Gordon, who I think the Celtics were.
Yeah, who is that?
Yeah, they've been dominant. It's been tough to watch. And again, I labor because do the Celtics have Jokic, and Jokic unlocking his game?
They got Rob.
Not
okay,
yeah.
and consider yourself grateful.
They have the future Jokic.
But yeah, I ruled Denver dead a few weeks ago, and they look more alive than ever now. So credit to them for getting aggressive there, making a big move.
Was it you who said they missed their window?
Yeah, I truly believed it.
We were like, wait, what?
You are the king of early declarations, huh?
Yeah.
That's what a good deadline move can do for you. Look at Miami last year. The kings of the deadline often end up being the kings close to kings at the end of the year. So glad the Celtics did something, but I think we might look back on that and say there was potential to do a little bit more. But it's a tough call. I'm not ruling either way on that one. We'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah. All right, Jimmy, any final thoughts? We'll wrap it up.
No, but you texted me something about the Celtics came in tonight as the 8th seed and 2 games ahead in the.
I said they're 2 games out from being the 8th worst team in the league.
Okay. That was
really?
just a fun
in the loss column.
Fun fact.
When you're saying they can't fall too far,
mm-hmm.
They can.
Nipping on their heels now is those Pacers. Right.
Good thing they won tonight too. Well, the Raptors won by 60 tonight, so they're the real team that's holding the last spot of not being in the playoffs at all.
Yeah, I mean they're 30 losses. The Celtics are 25 in the 8th seed. They're 5 back in the loss column. Even with tonight. So.
Again, it's I know you want to see some tanking, John, but it's tough. When other teams start unloading, that makes it really hard. And the Raptors lost a few key guys at the deadline.
I don't want to see tanking. I'm saying if the Celtics didn't make the playoffs, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. That's all. It'd be depressing because covering a crap team that isn't playing for anything sucks. And we wouldn't get to talk about the playoffs. We wouldn't get to do these shows in the playoffs.
We don't even get to do a series, yeah.
We wouldn't get to do anything, which would be a real bummer because we had a ton of fun doing this in the playoffs. So naturally, you'd rather talk about something real. I'm talking about long-term, welfare of this team. If they found their way into the lottery, wouldn't be the worst thing. So.
If they were in the play-in against the Pacers and they lose in that one game, we'd have to come on here and do an apology camp for Jimmy. Yeah, the Pacers are great. Be like, oh, can Romeo? How's he going to look in summer league? And then start talking about the draft. That'll be great.
Nope, you do that. I'm going to switch gears and start talking about football.
Yeah,
I'm going. I'm going into I'm switching sports.
We're going into cam mode.
Yeah.
Well, good tips on Sunday ahead. We can really actually take something from that game. Unless Hayward's sitting out, then maybe a little less. But the Hornets have been so fun to watch. We haven't seen them yet this year. And if Hayward comes back and Rozier playing the way he has, I think he was just the player of the week last week. They're going to be coming out here gunning, trying to kill this team. I know Olynyk kind of looked at the Celtics bench a little bit during the game, but those guys will really be looking at the Celtics bench as former teammates of these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are already talking about Patriots mock draft, by the way. Justin Fields just went to the Patriots in a recent draft. Like, I think it was McShay's draft. People are starting to freak out.
At 15?
I just can't see him falling that far. Yeah, I know. I just can't see
every mock draft has one of the guys falling to 15 or the Patriots trading up to like 10, 11 to get him.
Right.
It's not happening. Quarterbacks are going 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 this year probably.
Because they know Patriots fans are all over those mocks, and when they see a quarterback, they're going to click on it and
over
and trick themselves into believing it. That's what we do.
The Patriots should have tanked.
Yes. So if the Patriots didn't win that Jets game, they'd be about 3 or 4 picks better right now, and climbing from maybe 11 to 8.
Well, what were they gonna do? Drag the 10th guy or the 13th guy on the field goal unit off the field on the other side? Like the Jets, they were the kings of the tank last year. There was no way.
What Philly did. Send Stidham out there and tell him to throw lefty.
Exactly. They should have played.
The Jets would have sent 11. They would have done an all-out blitz.
That Jets game still haunts me. Oh my God. Anyway, for anybody out there checking it out, the Patriots fans are certainly several in the thread here.
Orlovsky, he had to eat his words today.
Who?
Orlovsky took some heat. He went on a podcast and said that Fields, he heard that Fields wasn't a hard worker. And then he got a lot of heat for that, and then he actually had to apologize, I think, today or yesterday about it. So
they got in trouble with the trope thing there. It gets tricky with the black quarterbacks. It's a lot of tropes that get thrown around about them.
I don't understand whether people here listen or they just post stuff, whatever. I don't think the Patriots are getting a quarterback. None of us do. You guys got it. I didn't say they're getting Fields, I
hope they get Mac Jones or Fields. That'd be unreal.
Yeah, but they're
I don't
not.
know if they will.
They won't.
I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Soapy, who had me on his podcast. He watches every show. They got a podcast called the Morse Code Podcast, and we had a really funny conversation about like the biggest Celtics bloopers of the year and like sports bloopers in general. And what I forgot was that Jets all-out blitz to tank last year. That was one of the funniest plays I've ever seen against the Raiders.
He said he was going to have me on his podcast.
Podcast
too, so he must be cheating on me with you.
There'll be a spot coming. Nick was on there.
Nick on that. I don't want to be on it then.
I will tell you.
No, I guess everyone's on it.
I will tell you this. I was covering the Jets game in the Meadowlands. I think it was it Thanksgiving, the butt fumble?
That was Thanksgiving. I was in the office.
I was at the game covering the Thanksgiving game with the butt fumble, and that was one of the funniest scenes in a press box I've ever been around.
You should have heard the office erupt.
Oh my God, because everyone saw it in real. It's a pretty good vantage point there, and everybody saw it in real time. And then everyone's looking around to each other, and they're like, "Wait a second!" And then as soon as you see the monitors in the press box in the real place, everyone, like the New York writers, just had the New England writers are literally laughing openly.
Just picturing Curran
just like holding their heads like
there's no cheering in the press box, but there's laughing.
The press box dynamics have changed a ton. There's way more Yahooism in the press box than there used to be. When I went, I told a story about my first Red Sox game in '98, and again, it was buttoned up.
Baseball writers, It's
baseball.
Well, it's still like that. It's still like that at Fenway.
And it's still right. It was really buttoned up. And then you go other places and you'd be like, especially football, when they started letting radio guys in and this and that, and they're friggin' roaring. And so it's different. But in that was hilarious. The butt fumble.
Oh, man.
That
was unreal.
You know which other one I mentioned?
Thing I've seen. That's my favorite blooper I've ever seen live.
That was funny, but what I laughed more at was the Colts fake punt on Monday night. I think it was.
Hilarious.
That good.
Oh, that was funny.
That was like,
because you were like, "What are they? Wait, what are they doing?" And then they did it. And you're like, "Wait, what?"
He's like, "Shit, I don't know. Snap it, I guess."
Oh, great! And the Celtics have added to our list. I'll be watching that Marcus Smart half-court shot for a long time. The only thing is, though, when the season's not going well, it's not as funny.
Right. Yeah. The Patriots fans could laugh at everything over the last 20 years because they were always in the driver's seat. Now last season. I don't think there were too many moments of laughter, but we won't relive last season.
No. So again, we'll wrap it up. But anybody again out here, if you are interested in football, we just did Evan Lazar and Alex Barth did a mock draft on Patriots Beat Live. They'll be doing those every week. Didn't get a quarterback this time around at all.
Jesus.
Just that's how the draft broke. You don't get they didn't get one in the first. They traded their second round pick up into the first round to get a tackle, and then there was nothing left. The cupboard was bare. So
I kind of agree with that.
Who are they doing the mock draft with?
It's running it through a PFF Pro Football Focus simulator, and then you pick your team and you draft, and you can make trades, and they can get accepted. So we did, we've done a couple of these live just to see how they go.
I checked in on it, but I didn't watch the whole thing. I couldn't figure out who determined like the order and all that stuff. But that was nice of you, Sebastian. Yeah.
What's the point of this show?
What is the point of this show?
I want to give one shout out to somebody who since Bobby gave a shout out, I'm going to give one out to Scottish Celtic who just tweeted me and said, shout out for Europe Celtics fans. 4 to 5 a.m. here, watching from Glasgow. Cannot miss a post-game show. So that's pretty sweet. Thank you.
We love that.
Yep.
Yeah. We love that.
So hello. Good morning over there.
Yeah. Good morning to everybody. Happy Passover. Happy Easter coming up. We're back Easter Sunday. We will do a show. To my Greek brothers out there, we got another month or so until Easter, so don't worry about it.
Greek Easter.
Greekster, we like to call it. Yeah.
This podcast sucks.
Yeah. Greekster. I know he doesn't mean it.
I know. I know.
He's one of our fans. So we'll be back on Sunday. But thank you guys again for watching.
Yeah. España.
We'll be back on Sunday. Hopefully Gordon Hayward will be joining the discussion a little bit. But.
And Josue and Sherrod, they were getting married or at a wedding. I forget.
One or the other. Yeah, we couldn't figure out if it was their wedding or a wedding that they're both going to. We didn't want to ask, so we weren't invited either way. So.
We weren't invited, but they're not around tonight. So for those who missed them, one or both will be back Sunday. And so subscribe to our YouTube channels, as we've told you a million times. We'll be going live here after every single game, eventually going daily. Again, exciting new sponsor to talk about next week that is going to involve the viewers here, and we'll hopefully get a chance to hear from you guys directly, more so than just this chat. So just stay tuned for that information when it comes. And until then, I guess that's it. We'll see you guys on